movement, but like a concept movement, and that could be cool. And identity she talks about somewhat, and autism is a disability, I suppose, a social disability, disability in description of impact more than internal characteristic, I suppose, but still. It's just not just out of nowhere by an outsider, but spectacular, like a live YouTube painting, and one that is designed not just to be a new style and express a new epistemology by an outsider, all that, but an object that's designed to be a talisman with magical powers as a map for humanity, a big idea tied up into an object. Scarcity plays a role, and we can, that'll come up. But could that be $1 billion painting? Maybe, if the idea is big enough. I thought that, she does talk about that in the article, that the technique isn't really going to be what sells it, it's the idea. And I don't have the best painting technique in the world. I think I've gotten serviceable. I think that, like I said, at the minimum, that this should promote a livable art prints website. That's my bottom goal, I suppose. But my top goal is to create a magical object that may one day be worth $1 billion to someone, because it changed the way the world thinks. And there's some reasons why I think it might be worth $1 billion at some point. Not initially, obviously. Obviously, that's going to take 50 to 100-ish years, at least, if humanity survives that long. And some fortuitous events, good chain of ownership, those types of things. It might be worth something now. And someday a museum could be interested in it, especially one that focuses on contemporary philosophy and art and performance art potentially, and wants a related token. So a museum, and then that way, then it never would be $1 billion painting, but that I could live with that, because it'd be in a museum, and that'd be neat. And that might help to spread the idea of the whole Harmon-E-Poch and everything else. And then other people who might be interested. I assume there are some billionaire art collectors in the world who are interested in epistemological philosophy, who are potentially maybe even interested in autism, who are interested in viral YouTube videos and think there's an investment opportunity, maybe. Especially if 10 million people watch it and we put the magic of the human power into it, that capitalism respects. That'd be great. Might do it. There's also your billionaire visionary or company that wants a token of their direction, and they align with my thoughts and see it as a path forward. That could happen. I could see that. Other ways that I value it, you look at, maybe let's talk about, I looked at 1925 arbitrarily as a time sort of before science had exploded global GDP, right at the last time where it was a lot and influenced by science, but not the main thing, and technology. And I don't know if that's even true. Science and technology may have had an even bigger impact, but I took it from there and adjusted for inflation. It's gone up, 5 or 6 times since 1925 to over 100 trillion, 111 trillion-ish dollars. So you take 50 to 100 years, and let's say it's 20% as good as science, which, like I said, science is powerful, but maybe you start using science in context of a whole epistemic approach. Who's to say? Let's say 20%. That's $20 trillion. That's a big idea. Maybe the token that got that started is worth $1 billion. think about, I was a litigator for personal injury and other areas of the law, and sometimes one way to value non-economic damages, and then you have economic damages too. Not that there's liability for me, obviously, although I did tell last night, and I will tell again, the story my parents told me when I was going through my neuropsych evaluation which is we never noticed anything abnormal about you, except for we took you to the doctor because you chewed on all the wood surfaces in the house, chewed them right up. And the doctor said, some kids like wood. I don't think I have a cause of action 30 years later, or then at the time, or probably even under now. I don't know that you'd have a cause of action. I don't know. I don't think I would have a cause of action when someone told me a few years ago, you're autistic, right? And I did not know that. And I talked about it with my therapist who I'd been seeing for several years. And he says, I don't get that at all. And you can't be tested for it as an adult. And there's no treatment for it, so there's no point. Maybe you don't get the whole damages from childhood. But the last few years, I don't know. But you think about, some way to think about it is to put a value on an event and then to multiply it by the number of times that it happened. And so if you're going to put an idea of value on something like a suicidal impulse, whether it's I want to talk about what they might be. Again, I did it last night, and I'm tired of it. Some of them are worse than others. Some of them are more dangerous and life-threatening than others. But let's say they're worth $100 each, $1,000 each, and you don't factor in anything else. $1,000 each, and you're, a conservative estimate. Again, I already talked about this. I know I'm going to be attacked, and people might not believe this. A conservative estimate at $1,000 each for number of times for distinct impulses. I looked at Forbes' list, and I'd be like in the top 100 people from that alone. $100 each, top 500 people still. 600, 700, I forget. It was around there. I forget if I added more to get to the 500. In any case, the emotion and life experience, and you saw my stress score, or heard it, that goes into my artwork, has some value. That's how I think to quantify it. It has different value, but quantification is an important concept, and we're going to talk about that soon. Turns out. Perfect. Next, not next, but next is, what is Harmon-E-Poch then? You may be familiar with modernism and postmodernism, and maybe even metamodernism. Broadly, postmodernism and modernism and metamodernism are ways to think about humanity's attempts to solve super wicked problems, which are, they have a definition for. It's like time-bound, typically multinational, cross-border, such that authority doesn't really work on them, like climate change, people's thoughts about controlling aspects of identity, like the authoritarian sheeple epistemic model. I think of those as some examples of super wicked problems that Modernisms like experimentation, turning to the self, but also reliance on science and progress didn't solve. In the post-war, the World Wars era and after, and then when that didn't work, people tried turning to things like absurdity and deconstructing the problem and thinking about them in new ways and looking at them from totally alternative approaches, and that hasn't worked either. And people are talking about metamodernism, and a lot of it is really related to what I'm talking about, and things like alternative epistemology, for example, and community, for example, and things like that, and that's great. It's not really in the zeitgeist yet. I don't know. It's related to what I'm doing here. It hasn't seemed to have caught on, and I think the problem is that the term is just not quite right. And the problem is that meta is the right idea in that it's about bringing things together and looking at a big picture. But it's tied to the modernism concept, and that makes it's an anchor conceptually, for one. And two, it's tied to the old mindset, which might just be a different way of saying that it's an anchor conceptually. But that makes it impossible to be truly forward. And it has to be truly forward to make a difference, otherwise we would have gotten there by now, I think. So Harmon-E-Poch doesn't just take the fact that we're going to bring a lot of stuff together, but it tells us what to do with it. Because harmony, blending of disparate parts to create a more complex but pleasing whole. Epoch is an age or a time period, and then I like the hyphens and the wordplay because I think it's catchy, and it reminded me of Bone Thugs and Harmony, and I think that's cool. Whatever. I don't remember if I said yesterday the 3 tenets that I've come up with so far. One, nothing is just one thing. Everything has multiple characteristics, and no two things are alike is a sort of a subcategory of this, is that those two characteristics aren't going to be identical. Even items that come assembled off an assembly line, they go through quality control because they don't come off exactly the same. So learning to understand the subtlety and the nuance and the individual characteristics and describing each thing uniquely before then deciding whether it belongs in a category with other things for a particular reason, and understanding why you're categorizing it together with that thing and why it matters and how you can use that. That's one. Another is that everything is connected. A lot of times different epistemological approaches will be narrow, and to achieve their effect will silo themselves off from other things and make assumptions, like the assumption of perfect information in economics, which is baffling to me and was when I was an undergraduate economics student, and how that could possibly be a helpful assumption to make. I made the math work out, I suppose. That seemed to be all I got out of it. Science silos a lot of things off. When I was looking up epistemology to see if anybody had talked about some of these concepts before, gosh, it was all broken up into propositions and this model and that model, and just people think about things holistically. You have to. Anything else is a fantasy. I liked the word I used earlier, anti-disciplinary. And then third, things are real, and I suppose in part by that I mean in that they are impacted by you and can impact you, even if you don't understand them, don't understand the mechanism by which they work, didn't know that they could be a thing and so hadn't thought of them before. Those things can and do exist, and they do impact you, and so it is better to think that perhaps they might be out there and try to think of them so that you can start to understand them and understand how they're impacting you and might be impacted by you, so that you can act accordingly. And so those 3 tenets are a good place to start. And then how do you get involved? I wanted to say this sentence. Harmon-E-Poch is the time to stop being afraid of the not yet understood and start harnessing its power to solve humanity's biggest problems. I wanted to talk about quantifying magic as a way to participate. So ways I think that I think people might be able to contribute is comments, response videos that link back to this, hashtag Harmon-E-Poch. I think writing and art and whatever your response is. I think I like the idea of gamifying and coming up with your own internal tracking system to track your magic, your unexplained. By magic, I don't mean outside of the laws of possibility or possible physics. I mean outside the laws of understood physics and understood possibility and understood mechanism. That doesn't, again, to recite one of the tenets, doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It means that we don't understand it and maybe can't quantify it because we don't understand what to look for. Think about what matters to you, how you can track your magic progress, your progress of trauma processing through your mark attunement. How will you keep score? Let us know. Let me know. Maybe we can come up with something that will catch people's attention and make magic suddenly become real. And then we can use it to solve our problems. That'd be cool and might be possible. And if you think AI is a good alternative or might be a way to solve our problems, ask yourself, even with the flaws in this video, which there are numerous, in this approach and this project, which AI would you use to produce this video? What prompt would you use? And the concepts in this video, I suppose, and the art to communicate it. AI to me is useful. I use AI that's built into Google to do some of the research in preparation for this video. It is also a convenience distraction that is rooted in a powerful but only partial epistemology of science and technology. The humanity in the mark attunement, in the art, in the cave painting, in the modernist expression, abstract expressionist paintings. These things aren't new. They're ancient. They're widely accepted by some, but they aren't widely accepted in a way that makes them useful to leverage to solve the problems that we haven't been able to solve. And that's, I guess, how I've been thinking about it, and I wanted to share that in case anyone else could use it or has a reaction. And I talked about painting the $1 billion painting live on YouTube. That will be next Saturday, August 23rd, 2025 at 9 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time. YouTube Live, Harmon-E-Poch channel. This is going to be my first video. We'll see what happens between now and then, and how many people tune in to watch it, but I'll be there, and I'm going to paint it in real time, live, and, I don't know, I haven't even done a YouTube Live or watched one. I don't know if there's question and answer, or if, I assume I can talk at least, so we'll see if there's more between now and then. We'll see what happens. But that is what I think I wanted to say. I think humanity has great potential, and that there may be a way to I want to be clear about a couple of things that I don't know. I don't think that we should just think autism is better than allism. I don't think that we should shoot for autism as the perfect answer. But I think that my understanding of autism as epistemology has given me some understanding in how to approach epistemology in a more productive way that we might be able to actually move towards through some of the tenets that I mentioned, and the trauma processing and the mark attunement. That's what I have to say. I hope to hear from you. Thanks.